Getting financing for a large purchase can either be a lifeline or a wealth-building trap depending on how you choose to use it. Today, let's talk about Apple Upgrade, a new lease program for Apple products supported by Klarna and advertising very low monthly rates on popular Apple products. But don't look at that, because simply translating a big price tag down into a small monthly fee is a psychological trick, and a pretty dangerous one at that. It's why so many Americans have massive car payments over incredibly long terms, often causing them to be underwater on the vehicle, aka owing more on the car than what it's actually worth. I'm coming at this video as someone who almost made a personal finance channel instead of a tech channel, so with tech and finance overlapping here, this was a fun one for me to tackle. My goal here is not to tell you whether or not to use Apple Upgrade. My goal is to help illustrate some different scenarios and help you avoid the traps and pitfalls. One of the big themes of my videos is helping you eliminate regret. That's why I focus on everything that could be a potential deal breaker when I review a product, even if they're really small or really niche. I'll try to keep this video simple and easy to understand with some relatable scenarios, and hopefully it'll help you walk away understanding whether you are truly interested in this program or not. So let's start with our first example and meet Mr. Max. He likes to get the best of everything. He sees that the latest Pro iPhone, which costs $1,100, can be leased for just $32 per month. That's great because he spends every penny that he earns, but he can carve out $32 of that spending for this purpose. So every month, he takes $32 of income and pays it to Klarna as part of his Apple Upgrade lease agreement. After the 24-month lease period, he has spent $768, or about 70% of the phone's value. He now has a decision to make. He can hand the phone back in, as long as it's in good condition, and then just move on. He can buy the phone out by paying the remaining balance, $331 in this case, which means that he would then fully own the phone and can do whatever he wants with it. Or he can take the path that Apple wants him to take, upgrading the phone to the latest model and entering another 24-month lease. That's why they call it Apple Upgrade after all. Since Mr. Max spends all of his available cash, he doesn't have $331 on hand, and he also needs a phone, so he upgrades, and he enters into another recurring financing cycle that'll probably go on forever and ever, or at least until Apple discontinues the program. Next up, let's meet Mr. Carl. Carl has a bit more self-control than Max, but a strikingly similar financial situation. He also only has the $32 available each month, but the only thing that Carl does differently is choose the regular iPhone rather than the Pro model, which, side note, is still a fantastic phone. The iPhone is $800 and leases for $23 per month. This means that Carl has $9 extra each month. Since he has a little bit more self-control than Max, he puts that into a high-yield savings account, earning 3% interest. After 24 months, those $9 monthly savings add up, and together with the accrued interest, Carl now has $309.84, which is great because he has the same options as Max faced. He can walk away or upgrade, but now he can also pay the $247 remaining to just buy the phone out completely. That gives him the freedom to carry on with the same phone for much longer than 2 years, which is great because phones today last a lot longer than they used to. Max and Carl's stories are not unique, whether it's because of frivolous spending like Max, or just because life is friggin' expensive right now. Lots of people can't afford to buy a phone outright and need some sort of payment plan to make it feasible, especially as technology like phones and computers continue to get way more expensive. Thanks, AI. The takeaway is that with a little bit of discipline, you may be able to find a way out of leasing a phone forever and into one where you can actually own your phone. If you take a look at the program details and think you can make one of Apple's monthly payments work within your budget, that's great. Now, consider whether or not that is the absolute cheapest option available. My guess is that it's probably not. But you should then ask yourself, what of the lower tier options could you live with in order to then save the difference and ultimately, with time, work your way out of a just permanent leasing position, kind of like Carl managed to do. For the next scenario, a lot of the facts are going to stay the same, but in this case, getting the Pro model isn't going to take up the entire remaining budget. Instead, we've got $50 of income each month that we can put towards our phone. Mr. Max is still happy with his Pro model and sticks with the $32 monthly payment, but now he too can save, putting the extra $18 per month into the same 3% high-yield savings account. After 24 months, miraculously, Max has $619.68 saved in his account, which gives him the ability to buy the phone outright if he chooses. But we know that Max can't help himself, so he decides to upgrade. Now, 2 years after his initial purchase, there is a new, super expensive folding iPhone that's available that takes up the entire rest of his budget. He goes with that one, and now he's spending the entire $50 per month, and as a result, the growth of his savings stagnates. Carl takes a slightly different approach. Even though he can clearly afford the monthly payment for the Pro, he still sticks with the regular iPhone 17. At $23 per month, that means he's now saving $27 per month, so he's saving more than he's spending, which is great. At the end of the lease, he has $929.51 in his account. That's enough to buy a new iPhone for full price. Not bad for starting with zero at the beginning of this. After weighing his different options, he sees that paying off the rest of his current phone is only $247, so he goes that route. After buying the phone out, he begins saving the entire $50 each month into that same account. If he can get 12 more months out of that original phone, his savings balance will be up to $1,682.70. If he can go 2 years instead, he'll be up to $3,108.74. Compound interest is a beautiful thing. And this means that his small bit of discipline has likely allowed him to avoid needing to lease a phone ever again. I think scenario 2 is probably relatable to a lot of people. You've got some money, enough to cover those basic monthly amounts, but not a ton of money. And the idea of spending close to $1,000 upfront on a phone feels like something that you'll never be able to achieve. But a little bit of discipline can go a long way here. Personally, I like to utilize separate bank accounts to help with things like this in order to create some automation and some simplicity in my financial life. Have your auto payment to Klarna pull out of this account, and then have part of your paycheck get deposited into the account as well. This means that you'll just automate the whole process and you won't have to think about it once it's set up. Plus, since that money is sectioned off by itself, you can train your brain that it is designated for cell phones and not for regular spending. Taking a quick step back, I don't want to be accused of just glossing over the challenging reality of life right now. Trust me, I know that it sucks out there. But I do want to show how using Apple Upgrade could help you or could hurt you depending on how you decide to use it. Finally, there's scenario number 3. Here, Max and Carl got a little bonus. They have $1,200 at their disposal and they have earmarked it for their phone specifically. In this instance, they both decide that the Pro model is what they want, taking up almost all of their budget. Max excitedly runs to the Apple Store and buys the phone outright for $1,100. Since he still has that $50 each month coming in, he takes a little bit of inspiration from Carl and continues to put that into savings to let it accrue and build up over time for the purchase of his next phone. Over 24 months, that's $1,200 saved, which combined with the little bit of leftover money from his purchase and the accrued interest gets him up to a total of $1,920.66. Plenty for him to purchase his next phone outright and continue on without the need for financing. Max might finally be a changed man in this particular scenario. But what about Carl? He's savvy. He sees that the lease has no interest, and so he still decides to finance it, keeping the $1,200 in his savings account and instead spending from the $50 per month he has coming in as income. This results in a lot more interest accruing, and as a result, after 24 months, he buys out the remainder of the cost of the phone, and even then, still has $2,656.98. Carl has truly maximized every penny. So who is right in this scenario? Well, it depends on your priorities. Max is happy because he got his fancy phone, he has less cash, but he has no debt, so he doesn't have to worry about making on-time payments, and if anything happens in his life, he knows his phone is covered. Carl, on the other hand, has cash. He's loving seeing his bank balance grow more rapidly than ever before, but he is always a little worried about missing a payment. He knows that he could incur fees or penalties if something happens, which could make the whole thing less beneficial to him. And in the worst case scenario, if he stops making payments, Apple could actually remotely shut off his phone. If you find yourself deciding between these two avenues, consider what the peace of mind is worth to you and then go from there. Sometimes maximizing financial returns is great. Sometimes not having to worry about something is better. So what's the overall takeaway here? To me, leasing a phone through Apple Upgrade can enable someone to access a necessary device that they otherwise could not afford. But it could also enable someone to access a more expensive device than they otherwise should choose. Like car financing, if you pick solely based on the monthly payment, you may wind up trapped in a payment cycle forever. If you instead spend less than you have and maintain some financial discipline, this program can help you get out of the need for monthly payments altogether. In a truly perfect world, we'd all have plenty of money and would be deciding which path in scenario 3 is better for us personally, but that's not the case for everyone. So while Apple Upgrade can 100% be a wealth building trap, it can also be a tool if used correctly. Only you really get to decide which it becomes. Thanks for watching. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. It is simply meant to give you something to think about. The numbers that I used were all from advertised pricing shown on Apple's website. Those can change though, based on adjustments to the lease terms, with the addition of Apple Care since it is not included in the base price, and with any trade-ins. Plus, your actual price will include relevant taxes for your location, which may also have to be paid upfront. And you have to activate your phone with a major carrier, so you can't use this with prepaid providers like Mint Mobile, for example. That being said, if you buy it outright at the end of the lease, it will be an unlocked phone that can go to any carrier at that time. One thing that I did not talk about as part of this program is that it can be used not just for phones, but also for laptops, iPads, and watches. But please, please don't lease a watch. No offense, but that is insane. And importantly, as I've said throughout this video, remember that these agreements are leases. So you will have a soft credit check performed, and you are effectively just renting the device with an option to buy it at the end. But in the meantime, the device is owned by Klarna, not by you. And if you fail to pay, it can and will be remotely shut off. They added that to iOS recently so that they could release this. Slight correction to this, 9to5Mac identified this feature in an upcoming version of iOS, so it does exist in some capacity. However, The Verge reported that Apple has denied that these actions would be taken in response to missed payments. Klarna, though, has said that 3 missed payments in a row would result in termination of the lease agreement and then a requirement to pay the entire remaining balance in full. But then what happens if you don't pay that? They clearly made this feature for something in the iPhone, so I'm going to assume that that's probably when it will apply. Either that or we're going to have cell phone repo men running around all over the place. I don't know. Either way, I wouldn't recommend missing payments. Now, statistics have shown that people who use buy now, pay later services like Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay tend to wind up taking on more than one financing arrangement, indicating that the ease at which you can take out financing like this means that you are statistically more likely to slip into behavior like Max than you are to maintain the discipline of Carl. It does not have to be that way though. The fact that you made it this far in the video shows that you've at least got some sort of discipline, because I know I'm not the flashiest creator and we've been talking about cell phone leases. Now, I hope that you can take whatever knowledge you've gained from this to make better decisions for you or for those around you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.